Hi everyone. Welcome to today's webinar presented by Litmos. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We encourage you all to just use that chat box on your right to introduce yourselves, tell us where you're logging in from today while we wait for more folks to trickle in. And while we do that, and before I introduce our speakers, I just wanted to review a few tips on how you can get the most out of today's webinar. So on the right side of your console, you'll notice a chat box and a Q&A box, and you can type any comments into the chat box and use this area to interact with other attendees throughout the presentation. And then today's webinar is also a Q&A format, so our panelists will be responding to some pre-submitted questions from the Litmos customers. And we have received a ton of great questions, so if we run out of time or if we don't get to yours, we will forward those to your CSMs who will reach out to address them. And if you have any additional questions during the presentation, you can type them into that Q&A box also to your right at any time, and myself and the Litmos team will do our best to respond in real time. However, any unanswered questions that you've submitted in the Q&A box will also be forwarded to your CSM. To view a list of resources from today's webinar, including the slides, you can click the word bubble icon at the bottom of your webinar console. That's the resources button. And if you're having any difficulty viewing or hearing the webinar, try refreshing your browser or signing into a different browser. However, rest assured that all registrants will be receiving a recording of this webinar after it's complete. So if you are having technical difficulties or if you have to leave early for any reason, just check your inbox later today and you'll receive a link to the recording. And if we could go back a slide, please, I can introduce our excellent speakers from today's webinar. Today's Litmos experts are Dr. Jill Stefaniak, the Chief Learning Officer at Litmos, and her interests lie in the professional development of L&D professionals and instructional design decision-making. She also serves as an associate professor in the Learning Design and Technology program at the University of Georgia. And please note that this content represents the opinions of Dr. Jill Stefaniak. It carries no endorsement from the University of Georgia. Next, we have Travis Moses-Westphal, who is Litmos's Senior Product Manager. Travis has over 25 years of experience planning and managing educational technology products and services, and is dedicated to developing effective research-based solutions that help people reach their learning and training goals. And now that we've gotten introductions out of the way, we are so excited to get this Q&A started. So without further ado, I'll let our presenters take it away.
All right, thank you. So I'll start out with a quick review of our safe harbor statement. The information presented in this webinar should not be shared outside of this webinar. And in addition, nothing we say here today is should be taken as a commitment to future work. This is our best answers that we have at the time and the things that we know of right now. Things can change. So just wanted to throw that out there and continue on. So our first question today is from Liz Reed, and I'm going to give this to Jill. So Liz's question is, we're looking to use Power BI to enhance Litmos reporting so we can effectively evaluate our learning. What data models, metrics, or best practices are recommended to support effective learning impact analysis? How are other Litmos clients connecting learning data with business KPIs to demonstrate the ROI and behavioral change?
So this is a great question and a difficult one anytime that we're talking about ROI, because usually for us to be able to answer those questions about what is that return on investment, especially when we're looking at L&D and trying to link that to our organization's, overall strategic goals, it takes time, because it takes time to be able to see those performance changes that occur after learning and development has taken place. And so one of the things that I would say, as you're looking at this and answering Liz's question, it's not a one size fits all. But one of the ways I would recommend thinking about how you might approach this is thinking about what is your organization's story. And so what is the story that you want to convey as an L&D professional? We get asked a lot about what is the ROI on our L&D efforts. I know that's a question anytime I go out to different venues. I'm talking to a lot of instructional designers and L&D professionals and HR managers, and ROI always seems to come up. But I think it's looking at in what ways is L&D linked strategically to support those overall business goals within your organization. And so one of the best things that you can do for this is if we're looking at just general metrics related to ROI and how we might be able to create that visual story with data, it's going beyond the course completion rates. It's looking at where are we seeing changes in performance. And so depending on how you're leveraging e-learning, it's looking at how often are you following up with your learners? Are you doing types of micro learning pushes to be able to provide them with that just-in-time training? How many of them are accessing just-in-time training? This begins to start to show the utility that your employees are seeing within your L&D efforts and programming and what you're providing them. When we start thinking about KPIs, this is something where it's really important that there's talk going on within your organization. And depending on the size of your organization, you might have a very close relationship with HR, or perhaps maybe you're wearing multiple hats within your organization. But when we start to think about KPIs, it's thinking about what types of goal setting can we do. When I think of traditional KPIs, I think of those annual performance assessments we might have where you set up your goals, you meet with your supervisor, and then you move on. And one of the challenges that we sometimes have is that those goals change, right? Priorities within our organizations change. One way that we can start looking at ways in which we can weave in L&D or be able to start gathering data to support this is to, as we're establishing what these KPIs might be, or we're reviewing them during those annual performance reviews, starting to set up conversations around what are our L&D goals, or what L&D opportunities are there to help support us achieving those KPIs. And then I think from there, that's where you kind of can start looking at how are you measuring that impact. Oh, you're muted.
All right, try that again. Question here from Anonymous, very much related to what you were saying about the timelines. Can you share your thoughts on defining what the timelines for measurement of learning metrics should be? What kind of delay should we expect between knowledge acquisition and KPI impacts?
Yeah, I think it. I'm going to give the traditional instructional design response and say it all depends. But when I think about those immediate effects that we can get, especially when we're setting up metrics, it's course completion, it's access. We can start looking at employee engagement, depending on if you're offering, an instructor-led training. What's the activity look like? How many people are participating during those live sessions? How many people are contributing to the discussion board posts? Those are different things that we can look at. We can track through our metrics, who's clicking on what and when, and what content is being accessed immediately. That can kind of help us to be able to provide, again, to provide that story, to understand that story. When we start looking at those types of things and looking at what types of information and content our learners are accessing, then that helps us determine what are appropriate learning paths depending on the different roles and responsibilities within the organization or within respective teams. Now, when the time comes for what kind of delay should we expect between knowledge acquisition and KPI impacts? That's a tough one. I do think that one of my frustrations I have as a researcher is that we don't give enough time for our learners to digest content. Usually, and if you think about sometimes when we're fitting in time for L&D, we're setting aside some time to do it. And then as soon as that's done, we're trying to make up for lost time, right? We've carved out some time for training. Now we're trying to get everything else done on our to-do list. And so it depends on the individual's roles. If they're accessing just-in-time training, if it's a routine task, we're going to see knowledge acquisition is going to happen much quicker, versus if it's a task where I'm going through training to remind myself how to do something, and it's a task that I only do once or twice a year, then that might take a little bit more time depending on the complexity of what it is that I have to do. But what I do think is one of the ways we can start to see those KPI impacts is revisiting what L&D opportunities did our employees take advantage of. How was that linked to your KPIs that year? So again, kind of like what I had said earlier, having those conversations during performance reviews, but not waiting until the next annual performance review to see, okay, how'd you do? And I think it's figuring out what types of informal mechanisms can managers put in place to make sure that their employees are on the right track. If we are starting to look at what types of trainings are needed or what types of L&D activities can support a successful KPIs and their impact within the organization, I think it's also looking at what resources are needed, how much time is needed. If we're looking at doing a major software change or we're making major changes in our processes, we need to be thinking about how much time is needed to acclimate our employees to those new processes and allow them some time to be able to kind of digest that information as they're moving forward. And so, Travis, we've got a question from Michael Green. What is the best way to update a policy training which is required annually? Currently, we create a new training course and remove access to the previous year.
Yeah, so kind of a theme here. That depends on what you're trying to do and what the need is. So let's say that your policy has very minor changes to it or no changes. You just need to make sure that your employees are continuing to be refreshed on that on an annual basis. In that situation, you can utilize the settings for a course to do the retake after a compliance period. So let's say you set it for 365 days, and then you set that the retake period will begin 90 days before that 365 days expires. So that's one mechanism. The other mechanism, let's say you have an update to the corporate policy in the middle of the year that you have to get out to everyone right away. Then what you might do is post that change to your existing course and have all of the current results reset so that everybody is then prompted to retake that course. Creating a new training course each year and removing access for the previous year's course is sometimes the simplest, cleanest way to go, but it does require a lot of effort of then reassigning that material to everybody in the organization, and can take a little more time than if you're using the retake of the compliance training.
We've got a question from Miranda. Is there a process in place or something in the works that will make it easier to assign new versions of a course to employees? Right now, when new versions come out, we have to assign the new course to all employees and then manually update their compliance dates if they are still compliant in the old course.
Yes, so we are definitely working on a new mechanism to manage the introduction of new changes and versions of courses. So what we're in the process of building this year will be a tool that, let's say, Litmos delivers a couple dozen new courses at some point in the year that you're using for compliance. How do those updates get added to your existing courses, or how do you move people to the new versions of that content? So we're developing a little tool that calling it a wizard at the moment, that will help you in making those decision points, right? So what do you want to do with that course? Is this something that you want everybody to immediately be given access to? Is it something that you want to wait until the annual update period comes for that compliance training? And also, what do you want to do with the previous results? Do you want to have a continuation in your reporting so that it looks like it is just the same thing, new year, or do you want a clean break and this is separating last year's reporting from this year's reporting? Yes, right now there is a fair bit of manual work to do to set those things up. This new wizard will help to automate a lot of that so you can get that done for multiple courses at a time and for the whole organization at a time.
Pablo has a question related to just-in-time training. What tools within Litmos can be used to support just-in-time training? The login process and the process of learners having to navigate the dashboard, et cetera, before they even get to the actual learning feels a little bit disruptive.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a couple of things that you can do to make the just-in-time learning experience a little bit smoother. So for example, if you implement our single sign-on capabilities, then that allows a much faster access into the courses, into the library. You can skip over those login screens. In addition, if you know that your workers are going to potentially need certain things, you can embed those deep links to the courses within the context of that work environment that they're in. Another thing that you can do is have that work to link into the new AI assistant so that they can just directly ask the AI assistant to give them a summary of whatever they are trying to get trained on just in time, so that if they just need a quick answer, they can potentially ask the AI assistant to give that to them without even accessing a particular course. We are also working on doing some deeper integrations with applications like Teams and Skype and Google Workspace, where the app for Litmos would be embedded in that application, and you could have access to the catalog of courses from that experience directly. So that is something that we're looking at in the future to help with that embedded experience for those just-in-time learners. All right, this question from Anonymous. Other than feedback surveying new hires, what other data do you use to measure the effectiveness of training?
I think there's a few different ways we can go about doing that. We can look at employee pulse surveys, just seeing how valuable are they finding the L&D activities that they're accessing. I think it's talking to managers and supervisors so that when they're coordinating different activities with their teams and seeing which employees are accessing which content and kind of gathering some of that informal feedback. That's another way that we're able to do that. Other things would be to add in some knowledge checks towards the end. Traditionally we see in e-learning, there's a lot of the multiple choice knowledge checks someone might do just to see, to what extent are they retaining that information, in situ. But even having a survey question afterwards, asking them, was this helpful, or even sending out a follow-up with just some reminders. Perhaps it's you're forwarding a different asset of just reminding them of content that they had participated in perhaps a month prior to. You can always see, how helpful was this? Other types of data that we can use, which doesn't answer all of the L&D problems in the world, but if you want to kind of start to see measuring effectiveness of training, is what was the purpose of the training? So again, if we're looking at sales training, are we seeing that the sales of different products are going up after employees have participated? Are we seeing customer service response responses and scores, are those improving over time, depending on what types of training initiatives employees may be going through? Another way we can also look at the effectiveness of training internally is looking at learner engagement. And so that's another thing to kind of let you know, how are your employees or your learners valuing their learning experiences? And so that's where you can kind of see to what extent are they taking an active role in training? How often are they participating in L&D activities? Over time, are you noticing that there's trends within your organization that they're accessing content at a particular time of the year? We'll see different organizations and clients will do different pushes or different L&D campaigns. And so what does that look like within your organization? How many people are participating in those types of challenges and campaigns going on? But there's a lot of, I think it's not just looking at the completion rates and the scores. It's looking at, again, where are we seeing improvements within our organization's strategic business goals? But I also think we can also kind of tell that story with effectiveness by looking at learner engagement over time. So Paul has a question. I would like to have an API to be able to extract data from external learning recorded in Litmos. No one in Litmos seems to be interested in the APIs. Why?
I understand that it could definitely feel that way sometimes. So we are two parts to this response. Is one for the extracting the data about the external learning records. What we are recommending at the moment for a number of these areas where people are looking to capture large amounts of data about their learners, their learners' activity, and so on, is to take a look at the Litmos data services. That functionality was created specifically because we know that we cannot get to those APIs quickly enough, and we wanted to make sure that that data is available for everyone to be able to access. So if you haven't already, definitely speak with your customer success manager about what you might be able to do with the Litmos data services. The other part of that response is that we are continuing to do work on APIs, specifically for the focus right now is on the new functionality that we've been releasing, developing the APIs for that. And we're looking at going back to some of the older APIs or the functional feature areas that never had APIs created for them, building those out as well. So there's definitely some work there to be done, but in general, that Litmos data services would be the fastest way to get access to that information quickly while we're continuing to build out and work on new and expanded APIs.
Jason's got a question here. When using numbered bullet points in the content authoring tool to the tiered system begins with 1, 2, and 3. One additional indentation changes the list to A, B, and C. Another indentation changes it to 1, 2, 3, and so on. However, this is not how the bulleted lists are displayed in the preview mode. Instead, each tier always begins with 1, 2, 3. Does Litmos have plans to correct this?
Yes, so that is on our list of changes to be made. Just so people have an idea of how things get prioritized. One of the things that we look at is this something that is going to prevent someone from continuing to use the application, right? It crashes, let's say, which this doesn't fall into that category, or does it impact the end result that's delivered to the learner, let's say. Also, in this case, it doesn't. It's just in that one preview mode. So the team has identified that. It is on their list of things to work on. If you're looking to see about getting that bumped up on the list, definitely, if you have not already, submit a report to support, a little bug report. As we get more reports that people are seeing this and experiencing issue with it, then that helps move things up on our prioritization list.
And we've made it this far along, and now we're gonna with AI now coming up. Heidi Scott has a question. How would you rate your level of commitment to integrating AI into course development tools and processes within Litmos? What are the top AI enhancements we can anticipate from your roadmap for the coming last half of the year?
All right. Yeah, so this is a very good question, and our current commitment to AI is very high. There's several reasons for that. One is the demand that we hear from the market to have that functionality incorporated. Another is somewhat of our competitive pressures. What are other LMSs doing with AI? And third reason is it offers some very interesting opportunities for solving problems that different takes on things. Um, you know, I was wondering, Jill, if you have any thoughts about how AI can be effectively leveraged in our L&D world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've gone out on a limb to say I don't think L&D will be replaced by AI, but I certainly think it's going to change the way we approach certain things. So when we look at the way we can use AI in our content authoring tools, that also helps us with expediting certain tasks that have traditionally taken us longer to complete. However, we still need to make sure that we have that human being, that critical eye looking and verifying that content. I think Litmos has been incredibly intentional with being careful with how we were going to embrace AI and integrate AI into our L&D products. And in our early discussions, which we have been doing, we have tried to center everything around the learner. So we've placed more attention on supporting the learner and how the learner may leverage AI, as opposed to the L&D professional designing instruction or designing content. And so when you think about one of our initial things that we've put out there was our AI assistant. So thinking about what are the ways we can help our learners identify appropriate courses or training materials based on what they're interested in at that time when they're logging in. We're starting to do things with our course authoring tool to be able to expedite those things as well. But I think just as we continue to move forward with all of our AI enhancements, just being very intentional and keeping the learner at the center of everything that we're doing.
In terms of the second half of that question about anticipated, what do we anticipate for the second half of the year? We'll be continuing to work on the three key areas that we've developed so far with the AI assistant, the playlist and playlist sharing, and then the content authoring tool, AI assistant. We'll definitely continue to work on those. We also are looking at how to apply AI to supporting adaptive learning and our skills and competencies functionalities.
Beth has a question. I'd love to learn more about how Litmos uses the AHA portal to drive upcoming new features or enhancements to different features. What are your best practices for managing our organization's requests for the AHA portal?
Thank you for that question. This might be a little bit longer answer. So I joined Litmos about a year and a half ago. And when I was introduced to AHA ideas, I found, I think, about 8,000 ideas in there. So it was, at the outset, an overwhelming number of ideas. And so, that question of, how do we use ideas to drive the features and enhancements across Litmos? Uh, what we do is when those ideas are submitted, part of what you do is identify what the functional area of Litmos is that this idea is related to. And we take a sort of a big picture global look at those ideas because there are so many of them. And what are the functional areas that people are either really engaged in or really struggling with? And we start with those. And so the initiatives that we have right now with the instructor-led training and the reporting functionality, for example, are the two areas in AHA Ideas that had both the most ideas related to those functional areas, as well as the most votes on those functional areas overall. So that drove us to look closely at those areas and how can we kind of globally recreate those. And so that has pushed us to, there's so much going on here. It would be most efficient for us to rebuild ILT, which is in the process, as well as rebuild the reporting areas, which is in progress right now. So that's how we're trying to take on the number and vast types of ideas that have been submitted as efficiently as we can see to make that happen. So over the next few months, as we roll out those new ILT functionalities and the new reporting functionalities, you'll see that a lot of those ideas are going to start to be switched over to being either shipped or no longer relevant. That's one of the other things that happens is when we make changes, some of the ideas then that were for the way things were done before may no longer be relevant. So some of those get switched out.
Campbell's got a question. The top most popular Litmos AHA idea: add page numbers and or select all function on the people pages. Has 552 votes and 62 comments. Has been open since 2017 and planned for some time now. Can you explain why this feature has not been implemented yet?
Yes. So my understanding is that it actually was implemented for a brief period of time, and it apparently promptly crashed our system. So one of the responses to this, there are some things that we have a high number of votes for, but the way that it's asked to be implemented is potentially not very viable. And so it turned out that that is the case for this particular request, because when you are doing that selection and it is 100,000, 250,000 learners, um, the the system isn't able to cope with processing that many items simultaneously and has issues with timing out. So we backed that out and returned it to the way it's working right now. What is in the works are several other initiatives to address the same underlying problem, right? The main issue here is that it takes a lot of time potentially to select all of those users. So one approach to that is to always make sure, whenever possible, that you are grouping your people under teams so that you can use a single team action in, to address a multitude of people rather than doing it for each individual separately. Another approach that we have for conquering this scaling for working with many different users is trying to ensure that you're using the Litmos Assign tool so that you can create the the code to automatically take action on individuals based on the rules that you provide in the Litmos Assign tool. And another possible capability, which came up earlier, ironically, is some of the assignment APIs could be used to address some of those issues around the selecting all function in that courses page. So working on each of those solutions of what can we do to automate things, what can we do to group those people uh, into teams so that there's a smaller number of groups, and then the last thing that we are currently working on is a select more solution, so that the number of people that appear on a page at a time, you can choose to increase that number, and then the number of pages with an upper maximum would be available to select more pages at the same time. So that'll be expanding what we can do with that. We're looking at the range of about 10,000 individuals at a time to make sure that there's no impact on the functionality of the system. It doesn't cause any lag on it. Um, you know, Working on testing of that, but there is in the works to be able to select more. Uh, so
And Travis, we had a question in the chat. Someone was asking, where do you access the AHA portal?
Where do you access the Yaha portal? So we have been doing some changes with the community site and the support site. So what I will I know I read the statement at the beginning that nothing we say here will be necessarily committed to, but I'll committed to work with the folks on the customer success management team to make sure that everybody gets an update on where those links are available within the platform and within the support pages that we have as well. So that's easy to find. So we'll follow up with everybody on that.
Thank you. And Christine's got a question. Are there plans to improve the Litmos Assign feature to include options to schedule courses based off of a number of days after hire date, and to assign users with certain titles as team leaders or team admins, or other triggers that would make course assignment more automated?
Yes, absolutely. So Litmos Assign right now we're working on a new feature that we're just calling Future Assign, where you can set a duration after one action has been taken to then execute a follow-up assignment. So, after this person has been hired and gets their initial training, then 90 days later, assign them a follow-up training, so that you have control of the calendar duration to activate that action at a future date. So that'll help address some of these situations. Um, and then we are looking at some additional work on the Litmos Assign tool to capture some more types of assignments and notifications within that.
Deirdre has a question. Do you have plans to allow transfer of courses once created? For example, when people leave the organization or roles change, or so that we can test in our sandbox and then bring it to the live site without the account owner then owning all courses?
So this is something that specifically we don't have in the roadmap at the moment. Right now, that the author remains the same, even if that individual who was the original author has left. Um, we've had some discussions about the ability to change who is listed as the owner. Right now, our approach has been more around if the account owner or admin um, can access that course without restrictions, then changing the that author name on that is not as significant a need. So that's been more of the focus, is ensuring that those permissions are available for people to do what they need to do with that course, even if the original author of it has is no longer in the picture.
Hannah's question, are there plans for allowing course equivalents to work outside of the same learning path? For example, if an employee completes a course in Spanish, they would automatically be credited for a separate course outside of the learning path of the original course.
Thank you, Hannah. Here, I think we've got two kind of separate issues. One is when a course has translations that are essentially the exact same course, right? It's just in a different language. We're looking at how to handle those so that they don't have to be set up as uh, being equivalent courses. They're the same course. So in our content authoring tool, we are working on uh, a functionality that will allow you to have within the same course the ability to switch between your translations of that course content, um, so that you don't have to have the multiple courses. Then also when a course is published, if it is from an external source and it has multiple languages, being able to identify what those are and tracking equivalency that way. Then the other type of equivalency is where they're not actually the same courses. One, let's say, I want you to take this more information on how to use math in uh, your management job, right? And one course is how to use an analytics tool, and another is how to better use Excel. And management's feeling is either one of those will meet the need for improving these skills. That is another type of equivalency that we are currently looking at, how to allow those relationships to be made outside of a learning path. Probably not this year, but it is something that we're
We've got another question from Deirdre. Customized roles and permissions, are they really coming, and what will that look like?
Absolutely, they are really coming. Our first beta testing began this week. We're working with a small group of about 20 customers who are testing this out in their sandboxes, putting it through its paces with testing all of the various combinations of settings. We're going to have an additional part two to our beta testing coming up in June, and then assuming that everything is clean from those beta tests, then in September we'll be working with individual customers on their transition plans. Um, you know, right now, as everybody well knows, the number of uh, roles and the permission options are very limited in our current iteration. And in the next one, it really opens things up where you can create any kind of a role name and associate any one or all of 50 some different permissions with that role. And we just want to work through with individual customers what their use cases are, so that we can make sure that they get a full understanding of how the tool works and what they need for permission settings to have it work effectively for them. So like I said, starting in September, we'll be working with people on the rollout and onboarding of that. And I think it's going to make a huge difference for people in how they can control access to critical functionality on that platform.
We've got another question that popped up in the chat, Travis. In general, what are some of the updates coming to the reporting engine in the near future?
What we are in the process of doing with reporting overall is one, we are replacing the existing user interface to have more of a grid experience where you can manage any of the data columns and rows, and you can do detailed filters and layered filters of the data that's in your report. And that the user experience, whether you are trying to use the report to get a quick answer to a question, which is sort of what quick reports is meant to do, or if you are trying to generate a report of a significant amount of data, you'll be using the same set of tools and user interface to make those selections. So it'll be a more unified experience and consistent experience than what we have today. And we believe it is going to be much faster to use and absolutely will have way more flexibility and control over what data is included, as well as the abilities to filter and sort on that data.
And for more updates on the most recent updates and enhancements, you can watch our recent Q2 product release webinar that we'll also make sure is available to everyone after this session today. It's also available in the resources section of the webinar console.
Yeah. Thank you, Jill.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Jill and Travis, for your time today, and thanks to everybody who joined us for today's webinar. We hope we were able to answer some of your questions. It was a really great discussion. And if you want to keep the conversation going, we encourage you to join the Litmos community, which is available via your Litmos instance. They have a very active discussion board and tons of customer resources. So it's a really great resource that we hope you all will take advantage of. And as mentioned, keep an eye on your inbox. We'll be sending a recording of the webinar to everyone who registered. And if your questions weren't addressed today, we will be forwarding them to your CSMs. If you have any other questions that you weren't able to ask, you can also always reach out to your CSMs directly, and you can find your CSMs by submitting a ticket via the customer portal. So we hope that everybody has a great morning, afternoon, evening, and thanks again for joining us. Thank you.